we get started?
Let's do it.
Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone to our four key themes for your fall strategy session. Thank you so much for joining this session. I'm Alex Ortiz from our employer partnerships team, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Kristen Ribeiro from our corporate marketing team. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, glad to be here.
Excited to see all of you today. And later today, both of us will shed a little more light on our stories, our backgrounds. I'll share why I'm wearing my orange and green colors. Maybe we'll see if anyone can guess before that, but don't cheat by looking at my LinkedIn. But let's dig right in. This is going to be super tactical, very practical webinar on four things your team can do to stand out with today's students. And these four things we talk about, what's great is if you're not already implementing them, today, we're going to enable you to do that. And not only the how behind these four things, but also the why. And something important to note, when we say students here at Handshake, we do mean both the 6 million students on the platform and the 7 million alumni who still use Handshake. So it could be someone finding their internship, finding their first job after graduation, or even their second or third job into their career, which is really cool. What we want to do is also give you a better understanding of the student experience so that you can deliver on what Gen Z talent really wants from you. And it's going to make your jobs just so much easier. It'll make your brand stand out really well this fall. In my time at Handshake, I've worked with nonprofits. I've advised companies hiring 100 employees. Right now, I sit on the team that works with our Fortune 100 customers. And what's great about all of the things we're going to share with you is it's going to apply to all of you, regardless of where you work, which is super cool. But Handshakes, we're really big on one of Handshake's big things and core values is students first. So what do you think, Kristen? Should we dive right into the student experience and talk about what it's like to be on Handshake?
Yes, let's do it.
Right on. So in the chat, take a wild guess. What is the number one way that Gen Z talent says they use to find jobs and internships? So again, type into the chat. What do you think early talent says is their number one way to find jobs and internships? All right. I'm seeing lots of social media. I'm seeing Google. I'm seeing Friends. Absolutely. I'm seeing Indeed, career centers, and 100% those of you that said Handshake. That's what we're hearing directly from students. And it's because Handshake is the system of record for at over 1,500 schools and colleges. We are literally embedded in the career services center at all these universities across the country. So what's cool, what that means for you is 75% of all college students in the US have access to career services and personalized career recommendations here on Handshake. That gives you access to all of them. Students are automatically invited to build a profile, literally their first semester on campus. And that means it's very valuable for you to be able to actually reach out to them early in their college career. And that means all these millions of students have the ability to discover your brand, which is what we're really excited to talk to you about today. So let's take a look at the student experience. Now, let's think about a student named Lara. So Lara is a computer science student at Stanford. She's got this dream of using her technical skills to solve social issues. And what you're seeing on the left, this image is showing you how literally at Lara's freshman orientation, first year, she's given a Handshake profile, and it comes preloaded with her major, her school year, her graduation date. And over time, what Lara is going to start to do on Handshake is to get personalized recommendations. She's going to add her skills. She's going to add her certifications, what club she's a part of, what she's interested in, which locations she wants to work in after she graduates, any links to projects that she's built during her tenure in college or during internships, her experience, and a whole lot more. And then on the right, what we're showing you is how Lara one day is going to search for her perfect opportunity on Handshake. So she can follow companies and find her perfect job and proactively begin applying, which we're seeing Gen Z talent actually is applying earlier than ever before. So it's great that a student like this has the ability to proactively also find your brand and apply to their perfect job. And literally when Lara clicks into the job, she's going to see the details about it and get prompted to save it or apply in 2 clicks right here on Handshake. So that's the experience that students have. Now, something really cool about Gen Z is they think about you literally as a brand, and that means a lot of different things. So Gen Z cares a lot about your passion, your mission. They're passionate about working on mission-driven organizations where they can contribute meaningfully to the world. So your brand should really verbalize and vocalize and show them what is your mission and purpose as a business. They want to see inclusive language in your job descriptions. They care a lot about what their peers have to say about the organization. Someone in the chat said, yeah, they asked their friends for recommendations as well. They definitely want to see themselves reflected in your organization, and they want to see a future there. And that means you need to communicate to them what are the career paths available to them? How will you grow and mentor them? What are the learning and development opportunities? All of these pieces fit into when we say brand, it's all 6 of these things. So if you haven't already, absolutely take a screenshot of this. This is a super important slide. And of course, we're going to dive in to all of them. Now, a little bit more about Lara's journey. So Lara will use Handshake to connect with you as an employer for virtual events, maybe to meet with your employee resource group to talk about your culture. She'll use Handshake to sign up for in-person career fairs when you attend. She's going to use Handshake to send and receive one-on-one messages. And you know, Gen Z really wants to have meaningful conversations with your brand and with your employees. So these are all pieces of how Lara is going to form an impression of you as a brand over time. Again, Lara and Gen Z absolutely thinks of your company as a brand. So you want to make sure all of that comes to life. And in her inbox, Lara is going to be able to get invited to those events, to those career fairs, apply for her jobs, directly engage with maybe an engineering hiring manager at your organization or a future potential colleague for a 10-minute virtual chat just to talk about culture. Literally all of that happens in Lara's inbox here on Handshake. Bottom line, Handshake has made it really easy for you to find Lara and for Lara to find you and your brand. And we're really excited to talk to you about 4 things you can do to make that really awesome for this individual and for any candidate you're looking for. So over to you, Kristen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. And I think one thing I always like to say when we talk about brand, and as a marketer myself, sometimes people are like, well, what is brand? Like, what does this term brand mean? And we'll talk through, you know, the logistics around how to help you engage Gen Z earlier and sort of immerse them in your brand. But I think the other thing is like demystifying it. Like any touch point you're having with a candidate, any place that they are reading about you, engaging with you, like that's all them experience your employer brand. People are a part of that. So I think that's always a, you know, like a good place to level set on. It's not this scary thing. It's not like only marketers can do it. Like brand is an experience, and we're going to talk through some ways for you to kind of elevate your brand when it comes to this early career talent on our network. So thanks to Alex, you have great context on the student experience. Let's turn that into how you use that context on Handshake. And I think the other thing to sort of bring to light here is that all types of employers are using Handshake to drive their hiring, their early career hiring and recruiting processes. Every employer has its challenges, its opportunities, and that can be related to company size, known brand, not known brand, big team, small team. So I think that the thing we wanted to do here is make sure that these tips were applicable to all of those types of employers, no matter what. And really to give you some actionable information to take in the short term and apply it to this season, and then think about it how you would apply it in the longer term next year and beyond. So one of the ways that we think is really helpful from Handshake's point of view is leveraging our sort of platform and expertise to understand the audience you're targeting. And like I said, I'm a marketer. One of my other hats here is to lead our thought leadership and research team. And that team is really here to help you understand what early career job seekers are looking for from employers, what makes them unique in their experience as compared to other generations in that comparative job searching experience. And then also to give you data from Handshake Network Trends, which is the brand which we publish under, to really use and inform in your strategies and use that sort of data across all three sides of our network, so student, employer, and educational partners, to inform your strategy. So I'm not going to read everything on the slide, but I think the key point here is like the shift of preference toward a company's stability over companies that are known entities highlights a huge opportunity right now in this specific moment, for you all to capitalize on that and continue to sort of lean on that and lean on that openness, lean on that exploration that we're seeing from Gen Z to go outside of like, you know, just the flashy brand name. So let's dive into that a little bit more. Keeping in mind Laura's experience, summing up what we heard from the earlier sessions from our awesome guest speakers, Protiviti and Ulta, and then really thinking like, what do we see across our 850,000 employers using the platform? We have 4 strategies for how you can elevate your brand on Handshake. Again, applicable to any size of employer, any type of employer. I'll summarize them quickly here, but of course we will go through, Alex and I will both go through it in detail, each of these points. And again, really like we're hoping to give you tactical information that you can apply today, literally as you're, you know, about to go back on campus, and then use it to sort of like get the wheels turning for how you might adjust things next year. So number 1, tell your company story, tell it authentically. 2, use data to inform your strategy. 3, involve current employees in that recruiting process. And then 4, provide a great experience. So if we click to the next slide, we're going to show you how some of these tactics actually work on Handshake. The first one is, like I said, around telling your company's story. We know that top candidates, you know, honestly, most Gen Z candidates are getting snatched up quickly today. So that window of feeling like you have a small amount of time to make an impression, make sure your recruitment marketing materials match, you know, your other sites, and really giving you the control and the tools to address that head on, address what Gen Z cares about head on, is on Handshake, frankly. So we're going to show you how, if we move to the next slide. Like I mentioned earlier, I lead thought leadership and research at Handshake. We are serving students on the platform, students and alumni on the platform, for a number of reasons. We want to be able to take that info, build a more empathetic product. We want to be able to share these insights with our employer partners. We want to be able to serve students and their needs, their diverse set of needs. And a student survey we ran recently had a key takeaway that really stood out to me. And it looked at the top factors students considered and prioritized when evaluating an employer, a future employer. So you can take a look at them all listed there and think about how you can incorporate those into your recruitment marketing materials, how your brand tells stories about your company's value prop, using the language that, you know, you understand Gen Z and early talent look for and understand. And then, you know, really thinking about how to speak to the things that matter and care to them. And so, you know, a couple to call out here: providing early talent with detail about growth opportunities. And this isn't just, you know, like how to move up the ladder type of thing. These are, how do you acquire skills that you might want to learn? How do you think about providing mentorship and allyship in order to help students and Gen Z talent be successful in the workforce? Being really explicit about compensation and benefits. I think we all are very aware of the national dialogue and state legislation around pay transparency, and that is a huge step forward in removing some of the bias that we see there. That's really what early career talent is looking for, you know, kind of the no BS approach there. Explaining location and remote opportunities. One thing we hear time and again is flexibility is key for this group. And, you know, you had sort of, you think about the class that started college in the pandemic is now entering their senior year. And, you know, the ones graduating now have experienced most of college in that time frame, and it's shifted the way we work. And the expectation is that their employers should be more flexible and kind of meet students, meet early career talent where they are there. So now, while I'm on the marketing side of the house, I think I am also speaking to this section here as a hiring manager and as someone who sort of can straddle both, where I've worked with our recruiting team and our HR team many times over, and sort of for many different roles trying to hire folks into Handshake. And in addition to being familiar with our product, I also have a view of all of the other channels where your brand is shown and where you can be making an impact with your brand. So I think, you know, on the right side there, you have your owned sites where things show up. Some things you control, some things you don't. And, you know, I think the ability to have consistency across those ones that you do control is really important, and have a clear, authentic message coming across. And certainly on the left on Handshake, you do have that. And that's really, you know, like where students, where young early career talent is discovering your brand for the first time, and all the way at the first step on campus, frankly. You know, it's not just the recruiting season. They're experiencing your brand through Handshake from the jump. And so you really want to make sure, like I said, that the story that tells your brand, that your brand voice is coming through consistently, authentically, and uniquely too, in a way that stands out from other employers on the platform. And I think, you know, specifically, very specifically in the properties within Handshake, how you can do that, whether you have the, you know, core version of our product, or you are a paying customer and partner of ours, you have both have access to the tools to make your profile stand out to students. So on your employer profile, you know, you want to make sure you have that branded banner up to have that wow moment, right? When a student hits your page, you don't want your page to kind of blend into the sea of muted things that someone could be looking at on a browser. Highlight any events you have coming up and point students to them, and make sure, you know, they know they have the opportunity to go deeper with your brand in those events. And I think, you know, one of the things we sort of touched on, but is very, very critical here, is making sure your job descriptions are clear, front and center. We'll get into a little bit more here. But again, this is like the sort of transparency and being upfront with this group. Now, on the flip side, you know, again, tools on both our core version, and if you're a partner and use our talent engagement suite, for those who are using our talent engagement suite, there are some additional tools and functionality to stand out and sort of, you know, compete in that profile view. So what those things are, you can feature priority jobs. You can spotlight employees who candidates can engage with on Handshake. And this is a piece I will talk about in a second. This is like a really core piece of bringing other folks into that recruiting process, and being really important to have those other voices as part of it. You can include videos, photos, for instance, maybe to showcase company outings or offsites, what the office looks like, and then link out to news and other media about your company. So, you know, maybe you want to highlight an award, or launching into a new market, or, you know, whatever is relevant to you and your employer. So I think that, you know, kind of highlights the employer profile is really worth that attention, and curating an experience that speaks to this audience you're trying to attract across your social, website, and Handshake. So with that, we'll hop into number 2, and I'll pass it to you, Alex.
Amazing. Thank you, Kristen. The importance, excuse me, of telling that story can't be overstated. And especially if you think about the part of our network that is still in school, maybe they're looking for that first job. They're new at job seeking, right? So the first impression that you make on them can make or break their decision on whether or not to apply there. So amazing amazing advice there and content, Kristen. Let's talk about data, because I'll talk to a lot of recruiting teams that say, hey, we want to make more data-driven decisions. How does that come together in the context of your talent brand? So one of the problems some employers have is they're still recruiting, frankly, like it's 2010, right? They are deciding on their school strategy based on, old hunches, on gut, on, hey, some of our hiring managers, alma maters, we should continue to attend, even though maybe some of those schools don't yield the return on investment of your time and attention that other universities have, right? So what we're seeing is employers moving to a model where they're using dynamic data from Handshake to inform things like school strategy, which demographics to target, which geographies to target. And we're going to dive into all of those areas. But because we do have the 6 million current students, the 7 million alumni who've graduated in the last 6 years, because we have, like Kristen said, 850,000 employers and 1,500 schools all interacting on our platform, there is a lot of data that we, can speak to. Some of that we can speak to here. Some of that you can access in the product, and some of that you can access through those network trends that we publish annually and monthly. But where I'm going with this is use that data. Please use that data to inform things like school selection, because you need to be where the students are and where they're looking for opportunities. So a couple of examples. Maybe you discover that there's a specific month in the year where applications peak, where students' interest in jobs is at its height. And so you then say, okay, our team is going to plan 2 months out to post jobs 2 months before that or a month before that, so we can tap into the best and the brightest and the most possible candidates. Or maybe, hey, my summer internship doesn't start until next June, but we're going to post that job this year because we know students are behaving in this way and they're applying to jobs earlier than ever before. So that's one example of using data to inform things like the timing of your job posts. Maybe you learn that students of color submit a significantly larger share of their applications to remote roles. And this is especially true for Black talent, who submit more than 25% of their applications to fully remote jobs. So, that's an opportunity for you to actually be an advisor to your business and say, hey, if we're underperforming with underrepresented groups or Black talent specifically, can we create more flexibility, say, in having remote roles? That's another example of using data to stand out. Another trend is that from 2018 to this past year, we're seeing a very large shift in students applying for jobs out of state. So I'm a student like Lara, I'm going to school in California, but maybe a lot of my applications are actually going to be back in New York or over in Columbus, or maybe I grew up in Miami and I'm going back there after graduation to be with mom and dad, and I want to get a job over there. So again, leveraging data like that to say, where is the talent that wants to work in the locations where we hire? Because what we're hearing from Handshake is a lot more students are applying out of state. And if you attended this last session with Casey Joe from Protiviti, you may have heard her talking about how partnering with more schools is helping them solve for those kinds of problems and build a more diverse thought pool and build that brand awareness across more campuses through word of mouth. So, speaking of schools, let's talk about the shift that we've seen. So we know recruiting is super hard, right? It's always been hard. It's always going to be hard. In the past, some of them made that hard. So before Handshake, you had to make tough decisions about which campuses to go visit in the fall for career fairs. You couldn't be everywhere at once. A lot of companies have small recruiting teams. Frankly, a lot of organizations, some still do this, unfortunately, is, hey, they go to schools that they've gone to traditionally because they could only afford to go to schools in their own backyard in person. Lots of tools. One is for the events. One is for the sourcing, or multiple tools for sourcing. Different tools to manage your relationships with talent and keep them warm across time. Spending a lot of time managing school relationships one-to-one. In the past, you had the spreadsheet with username and logins for each school that you needed to post jobs to. So that was the old model, right? What we're seeing now is a shift to making it easy through Handshake for any student at any college in the country, from any background, with no need for any connections, to find you and your brand and find great jobs. And what we did that by investing in the partnerships at the school level, which is why all these students get Handshake accounts as soon as they join the campuses. Well, what does that mean for you? Now, through Handshake, you can access all of these universities, even if you don't visit them in person. And you gain access to data on where are the students that we want to reach out to. And being able to hire any student that's going to any school that is planning to go work in any location, and any employer being able to do that, that's all now possible through Handshake. And my story is I graduated in 2005 from the University of Miami, hence my orange and green, had a neuroscience degree, chemistry minor, went into teaching, actually. I got recruited on campus. Handshake did not exist back then. And there was no easy way for a school system based in New York or Chicago or San Francisco to find a Black, Latino, STEM major who was passionate about education. With Handshake now, that's really possible. And that's what's exciting about this platform, right? Is we're connecting, like any school can hire students from across the country who are graduating next year, or a technology company can find someone who's not interested in sales, but inspire them to go in that direction, right? Because maybe they have a certain background or an interest in sales, but they have a science degree. So, Handshake has unlocked your ability to find Lara wherever Lara may be. And what I want to talk more about is the fact that 80% of students go to college out of state but plan to go work elsewhere, which is why you're seeing that shift where students are applying to more out-of-state jobs. And so it's really important for all of you on this call to be thinking about, your approach to which schools we're connected to, connecting to more universities, and really having a broader approach to recruiting wherever you're recruiting. But again, to do that, to reach that talent with your brand, you need to know how they want to be reached. So let's talk about, on the next slide, students want to be messaged. So what we're hearing is 66% of students want to receive a message from employers that's going to help them with their job search. So I've mentioned hiring managers a couple of times. They want to hear from your recruiters, yes, but they also want to be messaged by hiring managers or current employees. You can do that at scale, but you obviously have to do it in a thoughtful, meaningful, highly relevant, personalized way that's going to explain to them, hey, why them as a candidate, and then why you as an employer. From a scale perspective, you need to be, and I talk to a lot of employers that hire anywhere from 50 to thousands of employees. And what I'm saying to them is, you have to send messages. This is how Gen Z prefers to interact with you, but you've got to do it in a way that speaks directly to them. So there are organizations hiring teachers by the hundreds on Handshake. I work with employers who hire thousands of software engineers a year, right, through Handshake. What I've noticed is the kind of data that they're using to send out personalized messages, even though it's to, in some cases, thousands of candidates. It's those things like, where do the students want to work after they graduate? What are the specific skills they have or the skills they want to learn about? Which locations are they most interested in actually applying? The other cool thing about using data to inform your strategy here is accounting is a great example of this. A lot of industries are facing a huge supply-demand imbalance, right? We've got a lot of openings. Not enough candidates are graduating with this degree. So accounting specifically, I think it's 4% fewer accounting majors graduating every year. So what we're seeing accounting firms on Handshake doing from a messaging standpoint is saying, let's identify the schools that have the most accounting majors. And let's start messaging them that first semester. So thinking early identification programs, let's get them excited about our accounting firm, our brand, or in some cases, let's look at adjacent majors and say, hey, have you considered a career in our industry? So that when we talk about school selection and we talk about messaging strategy and using data to inform both, these are the kinds of examples that your team should be thinking about. Bottom line is, be using data to inform which schools you're connecting with, which schools have the most addressable talent, what majors you think you should be engaging with, and then messaging them directly, but at scale. Over to you, Kristen.
Great. Thank you, Alex. And I'm just conscious of time too. We want to get through all this great content. So I'm going to go a little bit fast just so y'all can get all 4 of these points. So I think the number 3 way that I mentioned is really involving current employees in the recruiting and hiring process. This is, it's recruiters, you play such a pivotal role in this. I think what we're hearing also is like, there's a different perspective that a hiring manager can bring, that someone from an ERG or community can bring. They want to hear from someone who went to their alma mater and, is in the role that they're in. So I think it's really critical to think about how to engage these folks in that process. And like I said, if we go to the next slide, hiring managers, students we polled said hiring managers were one of the top folks that they would want to hear from, 69%. And I think we all know that, right? Like your manager makes such a big part of your work life. And so it only makes sense that they would want to hear from these folks. Another area of application is like smaller teams who don't have huge boots on the ground operations engage alumni to go to fairs and on-campus events. And I know we heard Protiviti uses Handshake advocates to do that in the previous session. So I think, one of the key things here is just involving those folks who can give alternative perspectives, authentic perspectives, can really help set y'all apart from the competition. And that's really what early career talent wants. They want that personalized experience and those authentic connections. And here I just wanted to highlight a quote. This is from Renee at the Washington Post. She is a post-grad intern there. She actually writes a great column, and you should all check it out. But it really highlights like the sort of experience that these job seekers are feeling. There's waiting, it's scary. Who knows who's going to get back to you? And I think, this highlights where you all can come in and help cut through some of that waiting or noise that students are grappling with and really turn that into a superb recruiting and hiring experience. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Alex to cover our 4th point here.
And we are on double time because we're literally 5 minutes. So going to speed quickly through this. This is really important. Provide a great experience for Gen Z talent, right? It's make it easy for them to connect with you. It's things like giving them the opportunity to spend 15 minutes virtually with you through the platform to talk to one of your recruiters or hiring managers. It's things like making sure that you're sending a message before an on-campus event and personalizing it and making that student feel really special so they're more likely to show up. And it's things like, so on the next slide here, we know that students pay really close attention to whether or not you're creating a great experience for them. 69% of students will evaluate you based on that experience. And one of those pieces is job descriptions. So on the next slide, super actionable stuff. I won't read the statistics. You can take a screenshot of this. Gen Z tells us, students like Lara say, hey, we want to see clear job titles. What is the job? Where is it located? Literally put that in brackets in the job title so you don't have to make or guess. Make the job description super easy to read. Attention spans are short. They're being messaged by a lot of employers. Just talk about the role, who are they going to work for, which team it is, career growth opportunities, which skills you're going to teach them, things like that. So it's really clear what they'd be working on and what skills you're going to mentor them with over the years. And then you've heard Kristen mention pay transparency a lot. 66% of students say including a salary range influences them applying. So even if you don't live in or work in one of the or hire in one of the states that mandates pay transparency, be proactive, because the most proactive employers, even outside those regions who are posting salary ranges, they're getting a lot more applications. So all of this ties into creating a great experience for Laura, the job descriptions, the experience on Handshake, etc. And that's what they're looking for. And so to close us out, quick refresher, tell your company story to students like Lara. Why you? Why are you perfect for them? Why are they perfect for you? Make sure you log in today and update your brand page with some of the great tips that Kristen provided. Use data to figure out which schools to attend in person versus virtually, and which schools have talent that you're never going to go to or even host events, but that you can message through the platform. 3, involve current employees, like Kristen just mentioned. 55% of candidates want to hear from a hiring manager. Have your hiring managers use our talent list in the product to identify great talent and send them messages directly. And then 4, provide that great experience. Make sure your job descriptions have inclusive language, show pay, and just make it really easy for a student like Lara to fall in love with you, your brand, and your organization. And so with that, do we have 2 minutes for questions, or we're totally out of time?
I think we might be out of time. Alex, if you want to just plug the next session that we have here, and then and then we can let folks go.
Absolutely. So we've had a great time talking to all of you and sharing, some advice that is super actionable. But next week, August 23rd, we've got our Meet the Class of 2024 event. You can see the session right where you register for today's event. We hope you'll join us. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone, for spending some time with us.
Bye-bye.